You know, the first time was so nice, I just had to do it twice. What's up, guys? I'm Hunter, and here we are to do a breakdown / live reaction analysis and review of Sixes. What if Hakari was in Shibuya? And I'm very, very excited for this one. Notably because I already covered a What If Hakari Was in Shibuya, but that was by Restless Gambler and Eternal Flame. So I'm very interested to see how Six tackles it, because I think I will tackle it different from how they tackled it, and I want to see how Six tackles it, and I want to see if I missed anything from mine. Before I do mine, because gosh darn it, it causes issues, alright? I love Hakari, but gosh darn it, does he cause problems if he were to ever transpire or appear in the big ol' Shibuya. So, we have a whole lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about, so we do not have much more time to waste. Let's see, hopefully this video does not get corrupted in the early seconds. Let's not waste any more time, ladies and gentlemen, and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
Shibuya went wrong for the protagonist.
Volume, please. I need you to work with me, Volume. I could hear nothing. Show yourself.
Shibuya went wrong for the protagonist for a number of reasons, and there are equally as many ways they could have turned things around. Yuta or Hakari's presence on the day of could drastically change things, and since
to say things went wrong for the protagonist in Shibuya is a drastic understatement. Not really. It is accurate. But with that being the case, the thing about Shibuya, right? It's very fragile. Ironically enough, a lot of the Jujutsu Kaisen series is very fragile. You may be wondering, Pencilman, what do you mean by fragile? I mean, if one character makes one slightly different choice, the plot can't happen. I'm not kidding. I'm legit not. If Gojo took 3 steps forward or reacted violently to Kenjaku in Shibuya, and he doesn't get sealed, series can't happen. If 15-finger Sukuna does not transpire, series can't happen. If Toji stayed for 2 more seconds at the Dagon fight, or post the Dagon fight, and then immediately snatch Megami out of there, the series can't happen. I'm telling you, so many things, especially in Shibuya, are fragile. And ironically enough, you may think when I'm saying, oh, it's fragile to this, it's fragile to that, you think I'm insulting the series. No, I think it is very, very good that the series is very, very tightly written. There are very few things you can basically pluck out of Jujutsu Kaisen which don't cause problems later on. There are some characters you can pluck out. There's some characters, if you pluck them out, the series actually gets better. If you pluck out Panda, the series becomes an actual perfect series. But with that being the case, Shibuya is one of the most fragile points. Because, as he said, characters inside the narrative, as it were already, if they played things differently, could lead to entirely different outcomes. Gojo's obviously the big catalyst, right? Once again, I already brought it up. If he moves forward, if he had run 2 seconds faster and gotten out of that little meter distance that he needed to be in, he doesn't get sealed, and Kenny gets wiped. Right then and there. I know a lot of people have faith in Kenny's barrier system. It was not working. We especially know that now. That man would have cooked Kenny. Violently. Heck, Choso doesn't fight Yuji? Things can't happen. Everything is so fragile, which is why introducing these 2 characters, especially because of their level of power, is very, very interesting. But realistically, no, it still breaks it. It depends on where you put them. Once again, it depends on where you put them, how you put them, where you insert them, how you insert them. Either one, especially both, break the plot. This series cannot happen. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. But assumedly Six is going to get into it more in depth, and I'm going to, once again, who knows, either video, whether when I introduce Hakari, when I introduce Yuta, and where I introduce them, it's probably going to be an hour long. It's gonna cause problems. Speaking of things being hour long, what's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, we're gonna be here for a minute. I promise you that. So, if you don't want to be here for a minute and you want to check out the original video without my endless yapping in between, feel free to check out Six's channel. He'll be linked in the description down below, along with the link to the original video. Of course, he's a fantastic content creator, fantastic editing, fantastic thumbnails, fantastic topics. I'm kind of going to react to more Six videos. Once again, he's another one of the channels I've sort of put on pause, at least for my own watching experience. I've been subbed to him for a while now. He's currently at 96K. I'm smelling 100K in his future. But like, he's currently at 96K. I've been around since that man was at like 26, which isn't too big. Like, I don't think I was around like baby days, but like, still fantastic content creator. Quality's only gone up. So please go check him out in the description down below. If you do go over there, tell him Pencil sent you. You know, I always appreciate that. But with it being the case, let's actually hop right back into the video.
I've already gone over Yuta. I want to discuss how Hakari can change the outcome of the Shibuya incident arc. I'm going to try and keep everyone involved as in character as possible, but undoubtedly I'm going to have to make some changes to multiple things in order to make Hakari fit here. So if there's a change I make that you disagree with, that's fine. It's based on my interpretation of these characters. Before we begin, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as I greatly appreciate it. One thing I need to make clear before getting into anything Hakari would do in Shibuya.
I'm trying to think, what's the, like, if I'm writing it, once again, I always go back to, like, especially whenever I do what ifs, I always try to think of the perspective of not just me writing it, even though I am writing it, but also, like, if I were the mangaka, where would I insert him? I think he can't. You just can't. Once again, Gojo being sealed is the catalyst to the arc. It's the reason the arc happens. You can't insert him during the Gojo fight. One, because of the barrier. The barrier is very specifically set up to make sure only Gojo can come in. So there's that. And also, if Gojo doesn't get sealed, like, just the story can't happen. It just can't. He wipes the disaster curses and wipes Kenny, series over. Sukuna never manifests. Gojo recovers the 10 fingers. Feeds Itadori over the time period. Series ends happily. And that's exactly what would happen if Hakari's introduced that early. Because he would basically help Gojo ragdoll any of the disaster curses as long as he's in jackpot. Base, it gets a little bit crazier and a little bit stupider, but like, once he hits jackpot once, Gojo doesn't even have to worry about him. He's literally immortal. Like, I don't know. That's the thing. You introduce him after the fact, then it comes to where to introduce him. Someone brought up a fantastic point in the Eternal Flame and Restless Gambler version, where they're like, well, you would probably put him with Panda and Kusakabe. And in that case, not much actually changes, because those two run into nobody. Like, they ran into those random people from Geto's family, and then what? 15 Finger Sukuna? I'm sorry. Hakari's not beating that man. So, like, that's the thing. If you put him there, nothing really changes. But you put him other places, and massive things changes. Characters like Nanami could end up alive. Characters like Nobara could end up alive. Characters like insert character here could end up alive because of Hakari's interference. So I wonder where 6 is going to put him.
Is his standing or how he's perceived by most of the adults and not the students. Gojo views Hakari pretty similar to Yuta in terms of strength, but he also doesn't trust Hakari as much as he trusts Yuta. That's made very clear by him visiting Yuta before Shibuya and telling Yuta that it'd be up to him to look out for everyone if anything had ever happened to him. He does mention here though that he doesn't think Yuta would have to look after Hakari because Hakari should be fine. Yeah. This lines up with another statement made during Gojo vs Sukuna, where Hakari tells Yuta that Gojo doesn't want help unless he becomes weaker than the likes of Yuta or him. Gojo having this outlook on Hakari's power is a good thing in terms of the sorcerers and who they have on their team this time around, but his distrust in Hakari is definitely a negative for Hakari and not an advantage he'd have going into Shibuya that say someone like Yuta would have. Also, with Hakari being around Yuta's level of power in Gojo's opinion, he doesn't have access to Rika, which is important for multiple reasons. He obviously doesn't have access to any of Yuta's copied curse techniques, and he doesn't have access to essentially any fight he's in, being a 2v1. This makes Hakari a great addition to the team from a power perspective, but his perspective as a person and how other people view him is not good at all. Despite how weak.
And this is an interesting point that 6 is bringing up. I didn't even necessarily consider, like, the whole conflict that Hakari is established to have for the most part. Like, I completely always glaze over the fact of the Gojo statement, where I literally just give Hakari credit for, like, oh, Gojo thinks Hakari will be fine, even if something bad happens in Shibuya, but he wants Yuta to look over everybody, and he never gets in contact with Hakari. We know that based on the fact that Hakari finds out anything about Gojo after he's been sealed. There's no info on him. He's that disconnected from the Jujutsu world that he doesn't even know that Gojo was sealed, not to talk of Shibuya itself as an incident. Who knows? He may not even know that it was destroyed, which is crazy to think about, considering it'd probably be on national television. But at the same time, I highly doubt anyone would even have notified him, nor would he have really cared. The thing is, though, I will admit, if you're talking about, like, disadvantages, I don't think the personality thing matters all too much, because who's going to stop him? Like, I think if Hakari were to show up in Shibuya and be like, hey, yo, sensei, I'll be on standby, because, you know, I owe you a couple. You help train me up. You help get my gains up, you know what I'm talking about? And Gojo will be like, all right, don't punch any higher-ups this time, then you go into the barrier. Like, clearly, I really don't think it would be an issue on Go. Like, I don't think Gojo's going to show up and be like, Hakari, you can't be here. And anyone else who would come and tell Hakari that is not strong enough to. Who's going to tell Hakari to leave? Bakuganji? Who didn't even show up? Who? Like, what? What's his name? Panda's dad. Why is my brain completely blanking on his name? Because he made Panda. I guess my hatred is extending. It is going even further beyond. Why can I not remember his name? Yaga. There we go. What's Yaga gonna do? Tell Hakari to leave? What's he gonna do? Huh? Stick Panda on him? And let him get one tap? Like, that's the thing. If Hakari shows up to help, he's helping. No one's gonna stop him. So this is an interesting point to bring up Hakari's personality, but like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it actually matters all too much. Like, nothing. Like, nothing would stop Hakari from helping if he felt like helping. That's the thing, though. Would he feel like helping? But under the pretext of this scenario, under the context of the scenario, he's there. He's going to help. It depends on who he's going to help, though. Maybe he wouldn't help But then again, he feels the best. Like, this is something that Kirara states for Hakari's character. He felt the best when he was helping younger students. Back when he was actually in Jujutsu High. That was the main thing that got him, like, all the street cred, got him excited, got his fever. He loved helping the kids. So I wouldn't be shocked if he actually ended up going with one of the younger crews. Maybe he would leave Maki alone with Nanami and Naobito, because he's like, y'all got this. I trust you, Maki, you little knucklehead. And plus you got 2 grade 1 sources with you. What you need me for? He'd probably end up being paired with like a Yuji, or a Nobara, or even a Megami. Because who does Megami... Yeah, Megami runs with Yuji at first. So like, I could see him literally being with that trio. Or at least being with... Because Nanami actually starts out with Nobara. That's the thing about Shibuya. It's so... The starting crews are very heavily weighted and mostly balanced. The only one that isn't balanced is Kusakabe and Panda. They kind of get done dirty, I won't lie. But at the same time, I gotta put respect on it. I gotta put absolute W respect on the idea that Hakari may cause some issues, but I don't think it's really too much. But this is an interesting aspect that I don't think I ever would have considered. So shout out to 6.
Feel about Hakari and his gambling addiction and how cool he is. He's still the 3rd-year student that got suspended for beating up an official. With that being the case, it's not likely Hakari is going to be able to operate alone, even despite his absurdly large power level. This is where things could be looked at as complicated. Shibuya had multiple teams, and Hakari is going to have to be placed into one of these teams.
Yeah, I forgot.
In the original story, there was a student in each group because most of them were expecting a promotion to grade 1. Panda, Yuji, Maki, Nobara, and Megami. Hakari's placement into one of these teams would be completely random, so I'm going to have to make the choice, and I'm going to have him go with Yuji. I'd expect things to progress similarly to how they did.
Once again, yeah. I think that is the most logical choice from round start, because Yuji's the newest. He would have never interacted with Yuji before. And he'd be like, okay. You're the youngest. You're the newest. Let's do this. Because, like, notably, the whole reason... that's the thing of conflict, though, right? That's the thing. You have to kind of flip Hakari's character, because, like, would he collaborate with Jujutsu High? I think he would for Gojo. I think for Gojo he would help. And, like, as long as they promise to pay him. That's the thing. Because, other than that, maybe he wouldn't work. But, yeah, he probably would just straight up end up with Uiui, Itadori, and Mei. But at the same time, I could see him going with Panda. Once again, because that's the only 2-man team. Technically, I know Uiui's, like, young. So he technically should barely count. And, like, he's not even allowed to fight most of the time. And we don't know her technique at this point. But it ended up being teleportation. But at the same time, I do think it's likely enough that he would end up with Itadori and leave Panda because he trusts Panda, but at the same time, I could see him ending up with Kusakabe and Panda. I do respect the narrative choice to put him with Yuji, though, because, shock horror, Yuji's the main character. After the Gojo section, Shibuya revolves around him. Yuji gets into, like, the most serious gauntlet of fights, back to back to back to back to back. That's all Yuji. And thus, adding Hakari there is where you get him into the most conflict, and you cause the most narrative change. Once again, like I already covered, I covered in the Restless Gambler Eternal Flame video, and I'll cover again here. Hakari showing up in the Choso fight means Itadori never gets incapacitated and Choso may get got. Or at worst, well, maybe not got. At best, he gets knocked out. At worst, he gets got. And then we lose Choso, which is going to have ramifications later. Then, who? Who comes up next? Oh, Jogo. Jogo now needs to somehow fight through a probably mostly fresh Itadori and probably a rolling off a jackpot Hakari. That's an interesting battle right there. There's so many things that would have to transpire. And that's even if. Because who knows what would have happened if Itadori kept moving forward. If Choso didn't incapacitate him and leave his body there for the girls to find. The girls probably wouldn't even interfere with Itadori because Hakari would be there, likely in jackpot fresh off Choso. So this is the most interesting point to place him, I would say, just because of the gauntlet. There are ways you could place him to save more people. Like, arguably, you place him in the Dagon fight. You place him with Nabito, Naoya, Nabito, Nanami, and Maki. You could place him there, have him save a few more people, stack up a bit more damage, a little bit more easily, or you could place him with... Once again, Panda Kusakabe doesn't really save anybody, because no one falls out of that group, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, because I want Panda to go. But, like, I'm trying to think. In that... Who else? You said Nobara. You send him with Nobara, and then Haruta gets low deft. And we don't have to worry about Haruta later. Which would also prevent Maharaga. Which would probably cause... Once again, we don't know what Sukuna would have done if Maharaga didn't spawn. Like, he destroyed a chunk of Shibuya with Jogo. But, like, I'm not sure if he would have just opened Malevolent Shrine anyway, just to spite Yuji. I don't know. Interesting stuff. Let's see where 6 takes us.
In the main timeline, having Yuji fight the Grasshopper, except with Hakari on his side this time, eventually meeting back up with Mei, and then obtaining the Mekamaru speaker, telling him that Gojo had been sealed. Yuji would obviously need to alert everyone that Gojo has been sealed, and eventually meet up with Nanami, Megumi, and Ino. While this is happening, it's important to mention that Mahito tells Kenjaku and the rest of the curses that curses and humans are evenly matched now in Shibuya. He's probably not too far off, since Kenjaku does agree with him in his assessment. Given that they were evenly matched in the main timeline, it's hard to imagine that throwing a powerhouse like Hakari in the mix would swing things heavily in the favor of the sorcerers. It is worth noting though that even though Kenjaku is on the curse's side, he is not included with the team of them with this statement. So this...
And also, they weren't really on even grounds. Like, I'll be real. Toji doesn't spawn. Sukuna doesn't spawn. Jogo likely cooks every single sorcerer? Why did I say sorcerer? He likely cooks every single sorcerer there. What are any of them doing against Jogo's domain? Huh? like, it was true. Like, notably, Maido makes that statement. It is not true. Everyone there is fodder to Jogo. I'll say it. Toji, if he pops up or doesn't, that leads to issues. Because Toji ended up being a massive asset for the heroes. Shockingly enough, when he came in low diff Dagon. Without him, without Sukuna, like, if Sukuna doesn't take out Jogo, who takes out Jogo? Like, obviously excluding Hakari here. Once again, we're talking about the original timeline for a second here. Like, who beats Jogo? Out of who was there? Naobito may have been faster. Jogo opens domain. What's Naobito doing to that? Huh? We already saw his domain defense technique isn't perfect against Dagon. A sorcerer, a curse stated to be a whole level lower than Jogoat. Naobito gets domain diffed. Nanami gets domain diffed. Maki gets domain diffed, because she still has curse energy at that point. No Toji? No Sukuna? I think Jogo cooks the entire cast. So I never really got why Mahito made that statement. I don't know. That always seemed off to me. Now it seems more balanced, because you have Hakari in there. And Hakari still could hypothetically have rough matchups if he doesn't get into jackpot. But he probably will. Either against the Grasshopper or presumably against Choso. But let's see.
Doesn't mean that Kenjaku would get mollywopped by Hakari, but we'll get to that battle when it comes. After meeting with Nanami and...
we're going to tackle Hakari versus Kenjaku? Okay, let me give my early thoughts. Kenjaku slams. Yeah, I said it. Now what you going to do about it? Huh? Kenjaku slams. He slams Hakari on his neck. For free. But wait, what about Hakari's domain that's good in tug of war? Open barrier domain. Now I want you to look me dead in the eyes and tell me base Hakari beats Kenjaku. Go ahead. Look in my eyeballs and tell me that lie. You can't, right? Because you know it's not true. Even the heaviest Hakari heavers out there, they know it's not true. We know it. It's facts. It's facts. That's not even a time skip thing. Kenny Bin had that. That's a pre-time skip ability. Remember, Kenny cooks Hakari. So that's a bad matchup. Once again, if Kenny was like actively included or active during Shibuya, after Gojo gets sealed, he mollywops everybody there. Not to talk about Ume showing, like legitimately, he just mops everybody. Even Yuki. Once again, if Yuki and Kenjaku were to fight right then and there, if Kenjaku didn't just peace out because he had the prison realm, but you need to go put that somewhere, like he would have mollywopped everybody. Even with all of the backup that Yuki would have had there, it was an extremely fatigued backup who's also fodder. One bareless domain and he has all their numbers. Every last one of them. Because Yuki's losing the domain clash. Hakari, while his domain is good in tug of wars, Kenjaku's is barrierless. Open barrier. I've been saying barrierless for so long. I keep mixing it up with open barrier. But it's open barrier. He literally claps all their cheats. I'm sorry, like it's a massacre. It is a massacre. Unless you assume students getting to get any faster or stronger in the time skip, and then Jackpot Hakari is like relative to Yuta and could just punch Kenny's head off if he caught him off guard. But considering Yuki couldn't, I highly doubt Hakari could. But let's see.
Getting the news of all the curses in Shibuya and where Gojo is located, they realize the curtain needs to be lifted in order to get down to him, so Nanami will separate from Ino just like he did in the main timeline, and leave Hakari, Yuji, and Megumi in Ino's care. Given that this team of sorcerers will be inevitably running into Awasaka and his crew, it's hard to imagine a scenario where Toji actually gets summoned in this timeline. Yuji and Megumi can deal with Awasaka the same way they did in the main story, while Hakari stays with Ino at the top to deal with the Seance Granny and her grandson. Given Hakari's extreme superiority to Ino, especially at this point in the story, there should be a no contest fight with Toji not coming out at all. With Ino not being
you see what I mean? Fragile. Instantly. You know what removing Toji does? Everything. But it's true. I didn't even consider it that way. Yeah, if Ino and Hakari jump Ogami, she's cooked. She's legit cooked. Undeniably. She's like, I'm not gonna say Hakari does her as badly as Toji did her, but like, she's gonna start Hakari's gonna knock her out. You think Hakari cares? Hakari, he's unbiased. Bro says equal rights, equal vice. That's all Hakari believes in. You know he's mollywopping. And Toji doesn't happen. And if Toji doesn't happen, Ino doesn't get injured, Hakari's still fresh, Ino's still fresh, and they may end up jumping Awasaka. They may actually get in the way of Itadori and Megumi, like tag teaming Awasaka. But then we get Ino and Megumi. Well, I forget. What is Megumi runs off to deal with Dagon after this. So like, I'm not sure about Megumi. But then we would get Ino, Hakari, and Itadori versus Choso. I don't think I need to tell you that Choso's losing that fight, but let's see. Let's see what Six has to say.
Realized by Toji, there's no reason for Megumi and Yuji to split up after their victory over Awasaka. Things should progress normally from here,
even worse,
since everyone will be going into Shibuya as planned in this timeline. Since that is the case, when Yuji inevitably runs into Choso, there's no way Choso makes it out of this fight alive. This action definitely...
Yeah, that's the thing. They're gonna off him. Unless Itadori gets that last second revelation, which he probably wouldn't. He's mopping Choso. With Hakari, Megumi, and Ino there, Choso's getting done worse than Mahito did in season 1. They are bullying that man. It is horrid what would happen. What would transpire. It is dangerous.
It has major ramifications for later points in the story, but speaking in terms of Shibuya, this is a 100% net positive. Yuji losing to Choso and
leads directly to Sukuna. The thing is though, I'm not sure what Six is gonna. There's still a chance. It's a small chance, I'll admit, but there's still a small chance that Sukuna happens. Because essentially you would have to have Jogo run the gauntlet. It would like Shibuya incidentally turns into a Jogo gauntlet kind of scenario. Because if No, because the thing is, Jogo only finds Yuji because the girls release and unseal the finger that they had and feed it to Yuji. He doesn't find them after that. Like, I don't think he would have easily found Yuji. But then again, he wouldn't just be hunting for Yuji. He'd be hunting for Yuji, and then Hakari would be there, and then Ino would be there, and then Megumi would be there. So, like, it'd be crazy. And then the thing is, though, if Itadori never gets knocked out and Megumi doesn't split off, does Megumi even go to Dagon? Are they just cooked? Like, do they just get cooked by Dagon's domain? Probably. Because if Megumi doesn't interfere there, then Dagon wins. Probably, right? Because Toji doesn't exist in this timeline. So he's not going to show up and, like, break the barrier or anything. So, I don't know. What does Jogo... Because Jogo appears in response to Dagon's loss. He shows up right then and there. But, like, if Dagon wins, where does Jogo go? Does he just keep hunting for Itadori? And how long does it take for him to find him? And who finds him first? Does Mahito end up finding Itadori first? Does the Mahito clone end up finding Nobara? Like, what happens? Because notably, the whole Nobara interaction with Haruta shouldn't change. Because Hakari didn't go with her. And you would still have Nanami likely showing... I don't know. This is interesting. I'm interested to see how 6 takes this.
And being subsequently incapacitated is what led Sukuna to getting 15 fingers in Shibuya and wreaking the mass amount of havoc that he did. I'm sure I don't need to explain why Choso would lose to a group of Yuji, Hakari, Ino, and Megumi, but just to give Choso his respect, since he is one of my favorite characters in the franchise, I'd like to discuss him versus Hakari and how I think that would go. I think it's fair to...
I'll show you. Boom! Choso's on the ground. He starts stomping on him with his Tims. Then he switches to the J's, stomps on him with the J. Like, is that a fair fight? Even base Hakari. I'm sorry. Like, once again, I've heard the contentions. I do not validate this, but that's just me, though. Like, maybe if you think that base Hakari does not scale to Demon God Yuji, because Demon God Yuji was nowhere near going all out against Hakari, so sure, Hakari no-sells all of his attacks, but, like, Yuji's very specifically not trying to harm Hakari, trying to convince him. If you say base Hakari doesn't scale anywhere, right? Because he doesn't scale to Kashimo. He scales to Charles, but Charles scales nowhere. And then base Hakari... But then again, that's a time skip, right? I was about to say then again. But time skip base Hakari somehow survives Ume long enough in Domain so he can hit jackpot for the first time. But, like, outside of that, if you say base Hakari scales nowhere, then I guess maybe it's an issue. But at the same time, it wouldn't just be Hakari versus Choso. It would be Itadori, who's already relative to Choso, plus Hakari, who is likely relative to start of Shibuya Yuji, at the low end, plus Megumi, who's mostly fresh after the Awasaka fight, plus Ino, who at this point probably has taken 0 damage and is entirely fresh too. It is a wash! But Choso versus Hakari, personally, I give that to Hakari. 9 out of 10 times. Once again, that's just because I think Hakari directly scales to post-Shibuya, fully healed Demon God Yuji. Those are my thoughts, though. I understand if people disagree.
Say that statistically, Choso and Yuji are fairly relative in speed, even in Choso's strongest form, that being Flowing Red Scale Stack. Given Hakari's physical superiority to Yuji as well as his razor-like cursed energy, I think it's safe to say that in the physicals department he's got Choso pretty much covered. We do know that it's very in character for Hakari to summon his domain even when fighting people weaker than him due to his fight with Charles. That being said, I think he would use his domain on Choso, and given how Hakari is incredibly lucky and Choso's lack of or seeming lack of any anti-domain techniques, Hakari should be able to land a jackpot in less than 30 spins. While Choso is a blood manipulation user, and that's certainly going to be an issue, especially since his blood is like poison, Hakari should have dealt with a blood manipulation user before, since we know he participated in last year's Goodwill event where he should have met Noritoshi Kamo. While during his jackpot round Hakari is immortal for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, one way to...
I mean, to be fair, Toto does mention bring out a Kotsu or at least that 3rd year. So it is implied that Toto / Kamo and them did fight Hakari at least once. I was about to say, because I think it's stated, I forget if it's just in the anime or if it's in the manga as well. I think it's stated that Yuta just soloed the Goodwill event, like, by himself. Like, they sent in no one else but Yuta, and he won. But at the same time, Toto does know about Hakari. He mentions the 3rd year. So, like, probably they fought in the past. Probably. So it makes sense that he would know a blood manipulation user if he saw that.
defeat.
Plus, Choso isn't exactly subtle. like he doesn't hide the fact that he's a blood manipulation user.
or unalive a user of RCT is by using toxins or poison, which, as I just mentioned, Choso's blood happens to be. The thing with Hakari and his fully automatic reverse curse technique is that it can target poisons and expel them from Hakari's body so that he doesn't fall victim to them even after using RCT. After hitting a jackpot in the Choso fight, Hakari is definitely going to be amped up with his fever and wanted to be looking for more fights. With Mekamaru having told them how many curses were brought to Shibuya, I don't imagine Hakari would sit around waiting and would try to run into another one of these curses immediately. There are a couple different routes you could take here, but I'm going to try my best to steer the story in a way where Hakari has to fight each of the disaster curses one after another. The easiest way to do that, and since this curse is actively fighting at the moment, would be to have Hakari run into Dagon. Considering Yuji originally entered Shibuya train station at 10:10 p.m., assuming the chapters in this section are following a straight chronological order, and to clarify what I mean by that, I mean it's showing us events one after another in the order they happened and not a bunch of events that happened at the same time. Assuming that is true, Yuji's fight with Choso lasted less than 10 minutes because Dagon versus the other sorcerers starts to happen at 10:20 p.m. Given Choso would probably be faster than Yuji in dealing with Choso, and then
I don't blame him. I misspeak all the time. Y'all know this. I can barely speak the English language.
Factoring in he'd have to go to the other side of the train station to meet up with Maki, Naobito, and Nanami, I'm going to say that he could probably make it in about the same time. Meaning he should be in the Dagon fight from the very beginning. I also don't think I'm taking Hakari too out of character here. It's been shown whenever he gets his fever, he wants to fight, and he's not one to follow the rules. Even though Nanami did leave Ino in charge of the three of them, that doesn't mean Hakari has to listen, and given how strong he is, it's not like any of the three could stop him from going wherever he wanted to. Given the time it's going to take for Hakari to get over to Dagon in the first place, it's not like he's going to still have Jackpot activated when he gets there. This means that there's need for another domain expansion to happen. This fight should go convincingly in the sorcerer's favor, even without Hakari hitting a jackpot.
That's the big thing, right? Like, notably, the instant that Dagon loses his domain sure hit, he drops off in potency massively. Like, to the point where one arm now becomes like, oh, whew, oh, golly, you know, I can throw hands again. Hallelujah. Get that thing off me. So if Hakari shows up, like, right as Dagon domains, and he immediately domains back, then that's it. They're in a tug of war now. But Hakari may just keep spinning because the information is probably faster than Dagon's sure hit, considering it's even faster than the 0.2 second domain. And that's even if, well, I mean, to be fair, Dagon should still be able to pop his domain while Hakari's domain, but since Dagon doesn't have an open barrier domain expansion, they would just kind of neutralize, I'm pretty sure. Or Hakari's domain at least wouldn't collapse. I don't think so. And once again, maybe the sure hit is canceled out. But it depends on if you think the sure hit is a one-time thing, loads you up with all the information and stops, then maybe Dagon's sure hit would still be active. But considering that Hakari's domain is described as very, very good in tug of wars, I'm assuming it still would end up canceling out Dagon's sure hit. If it does, then it's an easy curb stomp. Because Naobito would just keep speed blitzing Dagon, while Hakari waits to get his jackpot up, essentially. He'd be vibing. And Maki and Nanami would be like, you know, I never thought I'd see a beach with, like, casino signs on it. And then just keep pushing. But, an interesting scenario, if you want to, once again, if you want to give Dagon a chance, and you say that, oh, well, if we're being technical, then maybe, just maybe, it doesn't work out. Right? Like, say, Hakari sure hit is a one-time thing. Once you get hit by it, you're done. And that's it. The rolls will keep happening in the background, as that's the condition for the domain to start rolling. But the sure hit of Dagon's still active, then there's a very high likelihood that Hakari loses. Because he's going to get spammed by Dagon's sure hit. Which should be able to damage him enough, as long as he's still in base. Depends on if he has any leftover fever from, like, the previous jackpot, and he gets it quickly. Because, of course, jackpot Hakari would face tank everything Dagon does and then smack him around. But if it's base Hakari undergoing the effects of the sure hit and Megami doesn't show up in time to start clashing, then I could see Dagon overwhelming him. Once again, because he may not hit the jackpot in time if his spins are still going on in the background. He probably, I mean, maybe he could start refreshing. It depends on what spin he's on or like what round he's in. Maybe he could start doing that like continuity rerun where he ends up refreshing himself in the midst of domain like he does against Kashimo. Maybe that's it. But once again, I'm more partial to the prior scenario because why would his domain be good in Tug of Wars if it isn't good in Tug of Wars? And thusly, those sure hits don't neutralize, right? Like if Megami's incomplete domain, which doesn't even have a sure hit, turned off Dagon's domain sure hit simply because they were clashing even though there were no hits to clash, because Dagon's sure hit should have still been active if Megami didn't have a sure hit yet. Presumably Hakari's refined, heavily mastered, and polished domain would end up canceling out Dagon's sure hit and they'd mollywop him. Let's see.
On Dagon, which I do think is likely. Dagon was getting beaten up by Naobito. In this situation, he would never be able to get off his domain expansion sure hit in order to immobilize Naobito and Nanami because he'd be clashing with Hakari's domain expansion. When the two domains clash, Dagon is going to have to somehow ward off Naobito, Nanami, Hakari, who's doing his spins, and Maki all at the same time. Considering his struggle with handling just Naobito in the main story before summoning his domain expansion, and his inability to deal with the sorcerers immediately when his sure hit got disabled, I'm not thinking this is going to go in Dagon's favor at all. I do want to give Dagon his due credit.
That's the big thing about Dagon. He says Dagon, I say Dagon. I say a lot of the JJK names weird. The anime exists. I know. I should just go like watch the section of the anime or listen to how the voice actors say. No! One day. I will. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I ever like say a name wrong and it gets under your gears. Because like, it happens to me all the time. Very specifically with Fire Emblem stuff, strangely enough. But like, Fire Emblem and mainly that. I don't know. None of the other stuff I listen to really. Because I just listen to a lot of JJK stuff. And Ben 10 stuff. Where things usually don't get mispronounced. So, with that being the case, Dagon, we always joke about Hakari Kinji being a domain merchant, right? But, like, Dagon's really a domain merchant. I mean, of course, he's going up against arguably the strongest grade run sorcerer, like Naobito. The only one that's still in contention with him is, like, Naoya. But Naobito's known as the fastest, which means he's most likely faster than his son still. So, I'm assuming that Dagon, no domain, no sure hit, he just loses. Horridly. Like, notably, Hakari wouldn't even have to interfere. Realize, if Naobito never lost that second arm to Deathswarm, say he didn't even have to use Falling Blossom motion, it was just them fighting in Dagon's domain, even with the domain boost afterwards, Naobito, after losing his arm, was still reacting to all of Dagon's attacks, tagging them, stopping them, and still was able to knock around Dagon a little bit when Toji showed up. All that still happens. Wow. Dagon's in his domain, while he still has the domain amp. So yeah, he gets bullied. Once again, it is highly likely that Hakari, Maki, and Nanami don't even have to interfere, but you know they're going to, and they're going to mollywop that man. It'll take forever, as Nanami, I was about to say, did Maki say? No. As Nanami says, Dagon essentially has boundless HP. It would have taken forever to beat that boy down if Toji didn't show up and just... That looks awful. Where's the stabber? If Toji didn't just... Yeah, it would have taken forever, but they would have done it. And they all would have lived. The issue comes afterwards. Once they beat Dagon, and they run into Jogo. And how fresh they are, whether or not Hakari can beat, like, we'll talk about it. Let's see, because I'm assuming that's what comes next, right? I'm assuming. Let's see.
Here, it's shown in the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, as well as Sukuna vs Mahito, that sufficient damage to your body will cause you to drop your domain expansion. Even after being barraged by Toji, Dagon didn't drop his domain expansion, so it seems as if he's pretty good at maintaining it and keeping it up. But that really goes to show the insane durability and endurance of the disaster curses. Even though now we've been introduced to extremely strong sorcerers like Ryu, Uro, and Kashimo who didn't exist in the story at this point, Dagon and the other disaster curses have absolutely insane durability that never really gets talked about. Jogo, despite his complete inferiority to Gojo, was able to take 4 enhanced blue strikes to the stomach without...
That is true. Despite Jogo being not that durable. But then again, it goes back into the whole thing where it's like, well, Gojo was holding back, right? Like, nothing suggests that Jogo remotely would scale to any serious hit from Gojo. Nothing. So, like, it's hard to give Jogo too much credit for this, but he still deserves credit. And another thing about the whole domain maintenance and Toji appearance and the bulk and stuff like that. Yeah, Dagon is very, very sneaky bulky. Like, he eats a whole lot, which doesn't necessarily get talked about, but it's mainly just because Dagon... It's once you run into the issue of, okay, he's bulky for grade 1s. Anyone else? Probably not. Toji just... And suddenly Dagon's cooked. A couple piercings to the head. That's it. Gojo shows up, 1 tap. Ryu shows up, 1 tap. Uro shows up, thin icebreaker, probably a 1 tap. Kurushi shows up, thin icebreaker, not thin icebreaker, the cleave to the, whatever that thing was, misery cleaver, life cleaver. The life festering blade shows up 1. Like, that's the thing. I still think the disaster curses low-key get power cut by the Culling Games. I think the Culling Games power cut the series. I mentioned this. From the introduction of Ryu, to the introduction of Uro, to the introduction of Kuro, to the introduction of... Think. Kashimo. Like, to the introduction of numerous different characters, they do power creep. Of course, there are some characters, post or during Culling Games, that still get washed by the disaster curses. Like, your Reggies. Your... all of Reggie's crew, realistically, even like Hazanoki, your Higurumas. Once again, I know a lot of people glaze Higuruma. I don't think it's that valid. I really don't. Once again, I refuse to glaze Higuruma that much. But, like, it's unfort. It's very unfort for the disaster curses, because they do get done kind of dirty, because all of their matchups are either against people who drastically outclass them, such as Jogo going up against Gojo and Sukuna, or Dagon ending up having to face Toji, or Hanami, once again, having to face... To be fair, Hanami gets kind of dirty by Goodwill characters. But once again, Hanami didn't know how to fight. And by the time they learned how to fight, they went up against Gojo. And then finally, Mahito just gets hunted down by, like, the perfect duos. Like, people who know how to jump him, and one of which that can damage his soul. After he runs, like, a whole gauntlet. So, like, Mahito goes through it, too. The disaster curses get done kind of dirty, but I do think, like, the stronger colonies do cliff them. Like, I don't see any disaster curse beating Curse Naoya. I don't see any disaster curse beating base. Maybe Druve, because they probably just domain diff him. But I don't see them beating anyone from Sendai, whether it be Yuta, whether it be Kuro, whether it be Uro, whether it be Ryu. I don't see the vision. Unfortunately, I don't see them beating Kashimo. I think maybe not all at once, and Kashimo may get domain diffed. He may get domain diffed, but even still, Kashimo has full capability of damaging Mahito. He's a two-souled being, and he may stunlock Mahito. The question is, how good is Hollow Wicker Basket against domains? That's the thing. We just don't know. We just genuinely don't know how Kashimo would fight well in Hollow Wicker Basket, but he's done it before. I wouldn't be shocked if we could do it again. So, it's nice, though, to give the disaster curses some credit, because we kind of stop talking about them unless it's to slander them. I'll be real. I do. Like, unless I'm bringing up the fact that they're fodder, at least in my opinion, not fodder, but I think they're weaker than a lot of current series characters. Yeah, I don't really talk about it too much. So, nice to Six to giving them some credit.
Being exercised, and then a red on top of that. Hanami is said to be even more durable than Jogo, and it's not just a slight durability difference either. Gege tells us that 4 black flashes and a playful cloud strike from Todo would instantly exercise Jogo. And Hanami took those plus way more attacks and was still durable enough to be able to summon its domain expansion. Nanami even tells Yuji not to compare himself to Gojo if he's going to continue being a sorcerer, because Gojo can pull off what would be critical strikes for Nanami like they are just simple jabs. Even with that statement...
And that does, once again, it makes the Jogo thing weird, right? Because, like, Hanami, who's massively more durable than Jogo, like, falls, like, gets I'm pretty sure it's confirmed he's not even using curse techniques because Hanami's still using domain amp at the time. Like, Gojo just rips out Hanami's eye stalks. Pure physical strength and curse energy reinforcement. But you mean to tell me Jogo survived 4 blue amped hits? Like, I once again, it's kind of hard to glaze Jogo off of that. It just means that Gojo was holding back a whole bunch. You mean to tell me that 4 hits and a kick from Gojo is weaker than Goodwill Yuji Black Flashes and Total Playful Cloud Strikes? Really? Really? Once again, it's kind of why the scaling is weird. It's weird, but let's see.
Nanami uses a critical strike on Dagon and can't even break his skin. That means casual strikes from Jogo, like the blue enhanced punches, probably wouldn't do anything to Dagon either. Although Jogo is much stronger than Dagon, being stated to be on a complete other.
And that's the weird thing, right? I wouldn't say that. I assume that Dagon would get ragdolled too. Because notably Hanami's known to be the most durable, yet Hanami gets beat by just Gojo flexing Infinity hard enough. And base Gojo no curse technique is ripping out eye stalks. Admittedly Hanami's weakness, but he's still doing that. Like, I just think that if Gojo was actually serious and started scoring Dagon with these blue amp punches, they'd go crazy. They'd probably do massive numbers to him. Just like Toji's Playful Cloud Strikes. They would pulverize Dagon. But I see the comparison, right? Where 6 is coming from using the Nanami statement. But Nanami critical hits are different from Gojo critical hits. They have different levels of base strength, they have different levels of curse energy reinforcement, they have different levels of attack potency, and they have different styles of critical hits. All of that in combination, I feel like equivocating Nanami's strikes to Gojo strikes, and by saying, oh, since Nanami's critical hits did no damage, Gojo's wouldn't. I don't really lean with it and raw with that, but I can see the loose comparison. Once again, we're kind of just glazing the disaster curses in the middle of this Hakari video. Because we're trying to like coat the fact that Hakari would absolutely mollywop Dagon if he showed up there and shut off Dagon's sure hit with the help of Nobito, Nanami, and Maki. I see what you're doing, Six. I understand it.
Level, it's likely Dagon is just a bit more durable, similarly to how Hanami was. That being said, the sorcerers definitely still have a fight on their hands, but like I said, this should still go convincingly in their favor. Even with Dagon's enhanced durability, Naobito could still put damage on him, and Hakari is even stronger than him. And that's without mentioning that if Hakari is to land a jackpot, like I think he will, Dagon is absolutely finished. Immediately following Dagon's defeat, Jogo should show up the same way he did in the main story. Due to Hakari probably being in jackpot from Dagon's battle, I don't see this fight going in Jogo's favor either. In the main story, Jogo had the luxury.
Now this really depends. Notably, I'm gonna sound like a Jogo glazer, and y'all gonna be like, oh, here we go. But like, then again, Naobito's at full health and at full stamina, so he should be faster. So he may be able to prevent it. If Jogo domains and he immediately, and I mean immediately, activates a sure hit, not that nonsense he was doing against Gojo, where he took his time and like sent out a regular attack. If he immediately activates a sure hit and domain diffs, Hakari shouldn't be able to open domain and jackpot. And Hakari, maybe, once again, we'll need to see Hakari interact with a sure hit. But, like, presumably if Jogo's sure hit is, like, maximum meteor or something, or, like, lighting on fire, and Jogo has domain amp, not domain amplification, obviously, but, like, his domain amp where he gets that stat buff, and Hakari should still likely be slower than Naobito, and Naobito would be getting lit on fire, and Maki would be getting lit on fire, and Nanami would be getting lit on fire, as Jogo just dances while Hakari tries to fight through and heal through and try to attack him. I think he could do numbers, because then, essentially, that would reduce it down. Like, let's say Hakari survives, right? Because he probably should. In Jackpot, Hakari's RCT is so good, it's greater than even Gojo and Sukuna's, and I don't think Jogo's sure hit would be any more effective than Malevolent Shrine, and Gojo was able to survive Malevolent Shrine sure hit. So Hakari should be able to survive Jogo's, right? Let's say they start domain clashing. Depending on how much time is left in Hakari's jackpot until he's able to domain again, we're gonna get Hakari versus Jogo. But it would be base Hakari versus Jogo until he hits jackpot again. But the moment jackpot shuts down, remember, the domain closes. The cancellation effect of the domain clashing stops, because there's no domain to clash anymore. So we'd be back to square one, where it'd be Hakari in jackpot burning alive versus domain amp Jogo, unless Jogo's domain gets shut down somehow by Hakari in the midst of Hakari spinning. If Hakari, once again, yeah. Then again, base Hakari versus Jogo, who's faster? You probably say Jogo, right? Probably? Once again, because Hakari, unless you use, like, Hakari, like, somewhat keeping up with Kashimo in base, somewhat. Once again, it's interesting. I think there's a chance Jogo wins, depending on how he plays it. But considering Jogo doesn't really domain diff anybody, he tries to go in for, like, the one-tap flame, I could see Hakari clean this clock if he gets a good hit on him. So, I can understand why he says it goes in Hakari's favor, but I can genuinely see a case where Jogo ends up winning here, if he domain diffs. But he has to immediately open domain.
Fighting all the sorcerers directly after the fight with Dagon, where they were all severely injured by Dagon's sure hit. In this timeline, that didn't happen, so Naobito should still be the second fastest sorcerer next to Gojo when he stacked his curse technique and using projection sorcery. He only lost this title whenever losing his arm, according to the narrator. That means Jogo is going to have to take out all 4 of them, including the immortal Hakari, who can continuously summon his domain so long as he keeps hitting jackpots. While Jogo is strong, stronger than Dagon for sure, like I mentioned earlier, I do think he's slightly less durable than him. That being said, I do think the sorcerer should also be able to put damage on him, granted they are able to hit him. Being honest though, I don't think Nanami and Maki are going to be too much help in this fight. Maki was barely weakened by Dagon's domain in the main story as it is, due to her not being hit by Dagon's sure hit the same way Naobito and Nanami were. Similarly, Nanami was dealt with by Jogo rather easily, just using a simple fire blast. While Nanami definitely was weakened like I mentioned earlier, it's not like he was weakened to the extent that Naobito was. I don't want to downplay losing an eye, but losing an arm is just much more significant. Hakari actually gives us a great example of how useful an arm can be when it comes to losing that limb. When Kashimo uses an explosion at the end of his fight with Hakari in order to quote-unquote rip him to pieces, Hakari sacrifices his left arm in order for the rest of himself to live. In other words, Hakari was able to survive a blast that would otherwise have ripped him to pieces just by sacrificing his arm. But I do think the duo of Naobito and Hakari in Jackpot should be able to take Jogo down. From here, I can see this continuing 2 different ways.
Yeah, so he's not even bringing up Jogo domain. And that's fine. Once again, we don't know enough about Jogo's domain. We don't know what the sure hit is, so maybe it just doesn't work out. And it's unlike Mahito or Dagon, Jogo never revealed the ability to activate his domain outside of the hand sign and saying domain expansion. Mahito showed the ability to shapeshift his flesh in order to produce the hand sign in his mouth. I think he exclusively does it that way too. But and Dagon showed the ability to open it up on his belly. But Jogo never did. So it's highly likely if Naobito starts moving, starts getting speedy, and doesn't try to run away because he's not fatigued in this timeline or not extremely damaged, and he tries to immediately go for Jogo, they wombo combo him to oblivion. It's most likely that Naobito will do a lot of setup for Jackpot Hakari, where every single hit that Naobito does, it's sending him into Hakari, and Naobito's consistently being forced to dodge out of the way of Jogo's fire attacks, while Hakari just Chad walks through them. And then, when Hakari runs out of Jackpot, he domains. And then Jogo domains, but then it's a neutral again. And unless Jogo's domain amp suddenly puts him above Naobito in speed, we're back in square one, where Hakari gets Jackpot, Naobito ends up bullying Jogo enough, and probably by the time that happens, Jogo's exercised. So I can see the vision. Once again, like I said, Jogo has to immediately open domain. Immediately. While Jackpot Hakari is still there. Because then Jackpot Hakari cannot open domain. He can't open his domain until a round ends. Meaning, it would just be Jackpot Hakari while everyone else burns alive. So, that's the thing. I understand why he didn't tackle it, because Hakari surviving this fight and winning makes it more interesting, because then, once again, 15-finger Sukuna does not happen. But let's see.
If Yuji continues on the path he originally went in the main story, he should eventually run into Mahito. This time he should have both Megumi and Ino with him. Assuming that Hakari had dealt with both Jogo and Dagon by that time, he could meet up with them before they fight Mahito, and they would all fight Mahito together. If Hakari...
They would beat... Once again, we run into the issue where they would beat the brakes off that man. Of course, only one of them can do genuine damage, but that does not matter. It legit doesn't matter. And realize, once again, in this, like, super positive timeline, this crazy next level timeline, it wouldn't just be Hakari showing up. It would be a mostly untouched Maki, a pretty much mostly untouched Nanami, and Naobito, all running to jump Mahito, who at this point is the only disaster curse left. Every other fight has been taken care of at this point. Meaning that if they move to jump, if they really move to jump, bro, then they jump, bro. They jump into oblivion and beyond. Like, they knock that man into a different dimension. Because it would be, what, an 8v1? No, Mahito's not winning that. And then what happens when Todo shows up? Huh? Facilitating an even crazier jump? Because what? The total would be, it would take some time. Because obviously Naobito and... let me think. Obviously, Naobito and... Ooh, I'm going full Jimmy Neutron brain blast. Let me think. Naobito and Hakari would end up making it there first. Then Nanami and Maki would have to follow up. So maybe they run into Mahito sooner, because Mahito runs into Nanami when he's slain. But then again, Nanami and Naobito would likely be held up by all the transfigured humans and have to slay them too. So Maki and Nanami would likely still catch up. So if they catch up, then it's going to be Hakari, maybe still in Jackpot, even still, base Hakari's a threat to Mahito, plus Naobito, second fastest sorcerer, plus Nanami, plus Maki, plus Itadori, plus Megami, plus Ino, plus Itadori. No, not plus Itadori. That's 7 people. And then Todo shows up making it 8. All jumping. And once again, it's very likely with all those people there, the real Mahito can't escape. So when the clone goes to run to try and fake out Nobara, if Nobara even still encounters, probably. Once again, it depends on how the timeline goes. Most likely, Nobara still encounters Haruto and still has to deal with that whole scenario. Then, Nobara versus the clone doesn't work out. Nobara either slays the clone because it can't escape, or the real Mahito tries to get away and tries to swap places with the clone to get rid of Nobara to break Yuji's resolve. But what kind of word did I just say? But plot twist, that can't even happen. Because Yuji's resolve would be fine. Because Nanami would still be just fine. He'd be alive. If anything, Mahito may accidentally run into Jackpot Hakari, Naobito, Nanami, and Maki, who would all be relatively fresh. Not fresh, but they'd be slightly fatigued. He ain't winning that. And then Itadori, Megami, and Ino are going to come in and jump. There's no world where Mahito wins. And there's no world, I don't think, where Nobara gets got or Nanami gets got. Because there are too many powerful people still alive who would absolutely dogwalk Mahito. Even if they literally all have to feed Yuji. Like, they're all just funneling Mahito towards Yuji. That's it. That's all they need to do. They could legit, as long as they keep chopping off his hands and he has to keep reforming them. I know that sounds crazy, but it could happen. They could probably just, like, pin Mahito down. Or just, like, pinball him around towards Yuji. He is not winning that one, bucko. But let's see what Success is saying.
Didn't make it there in time, then it's possible both Megami and Ino could perish fighting Mahito. There are a lot of different factors at work here
But that's the thing. I don't think so. He brings up a good idea, but I don't think so. I really don't. Because what's Mahito doing? He's got to fight... Because here's the thing. If Mahito finds them first, which I don't think happens in canon, because remember, Yuji... And wait a minute. This fight actually can't happen, traditionally. Because remember, this only happens... because Sukuna traveled half the city. Like, he ended up halfway across the city from the Jogo fight over to where Mahito was for Yuji to run down and see Mahito get rid of Nanami, who only was so easily to get rid of because he didn't have Maki and Naobito and Hakari backing him up. I don't think the fight can happen, at least not traditionally. If anything, Mahito runs into the 4-man squad of Hakari, blink, Hakari, at least in this timeline, Hakari, Naobito, Nanami, and Maki, and he's not winning that one. He may survive very, very long. And in fact, he may start trying to domain diff them. But then guess what? But then again, we run into the same thing with Jogo, where Mahito could domain diff them. He could start to mess up their souls, while Hakari just... But then again, Hakari may just brute force it, or soul tank it. And then if Hakari's in base and he goes for Jackpot again, and starts spinning again, then Mahito's domain isn't even working. And then they just dump Mahito. His domain shatters, bada bing, bada boom, and they'll start cooking him. And then Yuji shows up and starts cooking too. Mahito gets cooked one way or another. And I think everyone lives. But let's see what 6 has to say.
Weren't in the original story that I had to deal with, so I'm going to have to make a lot of different decisions and assumptions just so I can keep this somewhat concise and controlled. That being said, I'm going to split this off into 2 different endings, the good ending and the bad ending. In the bad ending, there is absolutely no way that Megumi and Ino are still alive by the time Hakari gets there. It's even possible, due to the fact that Yuji didn't eat 15 more fingers, that he would be unalived by Mahito as well. Gojo does state during the Goodwill event that Yuji does grow in power whenever
Okay. Are they feeling threatened by Yuji and his growing strength from the fingers? I didn't think it worked. I guess so. I guess, yeah, because Yuji's 50. But once again, I don't think it... I see what 6 is going for here, but I don't think it happens. And I don't think the gap is enough. Because remember, Yuji would still most likely end up being relative. Because Yuji was already stronger than Todo by that point. And Todo didn't get any specific amps throughout Shibuya. Todo... Essentially, Shibuya Todo is the same as Goodwill Todo. Very little difference between the two, because he doesn't get any amps. And by the time of Goodwill... Yuji's already Todo's equal, if not his superior, by the time he lands Black Flashes. So I think scaling-wise, even though the fingers may make some sort of difference, I don't think it's enough that Mahito suddenly beats Itadori. Especially when Itadori has backup from Megami and Ino. I don't see it. Because Mahito, if he runs into Itadori, he still can't use Domain. He just can't. Because Sukuna's still there. And we know that Mahito still felt that Sukuna was enough of a threat that no matter what, he couldn't Domain him. So, like, I don't know. I still think Mahito... I don't see a bad ending here. Even if Hakari shows up late, because I don't even think Mahito... I'm thinking of the story differently. I don't think Mahito... Really? You're at 20%? Are you not charging? Why are you not charging? What is transpired? Wait a minute. Oh, no wonder. Hold on. Are you charging now? Gosh darn it, I wish I had known that. But... I'm trying to see a vision. I'm trying to look into the future right now. Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe 6 and I are thinking differently in terms of timeline, but I don't think Mahito even encounters Yuji. Either he runs into Hakari's group first, because Hakari's group is traveling with Nanami, post beating Jogo, or Mahito gets giga jumped by Megami, who's mostly fresh, Itadori, who's mostly fresh, and Ino, who's mostly fresh. And I don't think the strength gap between the Yujis would be that much different, even without the extra fingers. Because I don't think the fingers actually do too much for Yuji. I think they do basically nothing. Just based on the Todo scaling. Once again, with Todo already being Yuji's inferior and not stated to get any stronger between Goodwill and Shibuya. He gets stronger after the Black Flash, but he's already relative. So I don't know. I don't see it. I see where he's going to, because once again, he's trying to add that bad ending, but I don't think it works. Just based on how the story that he's set up so far has gone. But let's see.
He eats the fingers. Not as much as Sukuna, obviously, but he does grow in power. Here, he'd be at 11 less fingers than he was in the original story. So it's pretty hard to say if he would still be at Mahito's level and Mahito wouldn't just beat him up. Although he can't transfigure his soul, Sukuna does make it clear he doesn't really care if Mahito beats on Yuji outside of that. Although Yuji didn't lose to Choso in this timeline, and Nanami wasn't exploded right in front of his eyes, it's possible and likely even given Mahito's nature that he would still want to bring Nobara to him and unalive her right in front of Yuji, similarly to how he's done with Megami and Ino at this point. I think...
But once again, does that even happen? Just based on the timeline he sets up, I don't think Megami, because once again, without the ability to domain diff them, Megami, who already shows relativity to Shibuya Yuji in the fight with Awasaka, and Ino, who shouldn't be too far behind either, at most he gets Ino. I don't think he's getting Megami, because he has to go through all Megami shadows, and he can't domain diff him, because he can't activate domain with Yuji there. He would have to he would have to hard focus them. And even then, I don't think they're allowing that to happen. The reason that Mahito versus Yuji goes as well as it does for Mahito is because it starts as a 1-on-1, not a 3-on-1. The numbers, plus Yuji's ability to essentially tell Mahito no to his main ability that would easily allow him to one-shot Ino and Mahito, or at least, I mean, then again, maybe we get an earlier 0.2 second domain? Maybe he gets pressed earlier soon enough, but I don't see no bar getting got here. I don't. That's all. I think just based on the timeline that Six set up here, I don't really see the vision. I don't see the vision that he's seeing. But let's keep going.
Losing 3 friends back to back like this would be enough to push Yuji to his breaking point again, where Mahito could land another Black Flash and continue to do an onslaught with him. There is a matter of if Sukuna would let Mahito actually unalive Megami, but I don't think he really has a choice in this matter. When using his Enchained Binding Vow with Yuji, he's sworn not to harm anybody, so it's not like he can use that and then beat up Mahito.
Thing is though, he could just take over the body, grab Mahito by the neck, and drag him out. That doesn't count as harm. Remember, he literally knocks Hana out. That does not incur the wrath of the Binding Vow. I think removing Mahito from the scenario would be fine enough. Sukuna would take over for 1 minute, he would drag Mahito halfway across the city, and then run back and protect Megami. Or just stay with him. And then Mahito then needs to run that distance back. Because Mahito's still not beating 4-finger Sukuna. He isn't. Mahito's probably not beating 1-finger Sukuna, being completely real with you. So, like, I don't think so. Once again, I don't really see the vision. And I didn't even think about that. The whole idea that Sukuna would pop out and be like, whoa, buddy. Whoa, but not the boy. He would probably burn the Enchain right here. Because he would not want to lose Megami. Because if he loses Megami here, then he's cooked. Because then he doesn't have a body. So Sukuna would definitely interfere here and prevent that. So yeah, there's no way anyone gets gotten this. At least, once again, unless I'm misunderstanding the time that the Six set up, there's no way that anyone gets got. This is the purest of happy ending. This really was our Jujutsu Kaisen kind of ending. The only thing that happens is Gojo sealed. No one... If we go by this timeline, and based on how things go in the manga, either Mahito runs into the Nanami crew and gets ragdolled for a while, unless he tries the domain diff and then gets domain back by a base Hakari and then can't domain anymore and then gets beat up, or he runs into Yuji Gang, where he gets jumped to oblivion, and then extra people come in to continue the jump to oblivion, and then he loses. Heaven forbid Todo shows up, or Nobara does more damage to the double, and then more soul damage gets done to Mahito. I don't know. I don't understand the vision. But let's see.
Other than that, he can't switch with Yuji whenever he just wants to, because Yuji is like a cage for Sukuna, so I don't think Sukuna is going to come out. If Todo does show up, it's possible he could still give Yuji the pep talk that he did in the original timeline and get him to stand back up and continue fighting. This is extremely important because if Yuji's up and continues fighting when Hakari shows up, then Mahito is possible to take down. While Hakari is extremely powerful, as I've made clear multiple times throughout the video, he cannot, at least to our knowledge, perceive and hit the soul the same way Yuji can. That makes Yuji integral in this fight. There is an extremely important detail about Hakari's domain that makes it almost impossible for Mahito to reach his final form in this version of events. That being the fast activation of Hakari's domain in Surehit. Mahito in the original timeline was able to take out Todo's hand, hit another Black Flash, and figure out the true essence of his soul. In this timeline, if Mahito tries a similar move, which I think he probably would given the fact he'd probably get pretty desperate, Hakari could activate his domain and shield Todo from being touched due to the sure hits either cancelling out, or Hakari sure hit outright winning, since it's a non-lethal sure hit and stronger in a domain tug of war. If this
And even if, alternate scenario, right? Let's say, oh, well, Mahito still gets the 0.2 second domain off, and Hakari's in jackpot, right? So he can't interfere, because he can't open his domain while in jackpot. Main issue that he runs into, he tries to run in and tag somebody with a Black Flash. Jackpot Hakari's still right there, entirely unaffected by Mahito's quick tickle of his soul, because he has so much cursed energy guarding it. Boom! Knocks Mahito away. And Mahito doesn't hit the Black Flash, and he still doesn't get the true essence of his soul. And ironically enough, entering the true essence of his soul here would actually be a massive debuff, because then he can just be restrained. Just like Hakari could literally just hold Mahito, like just avoid his hands and just grip him. What's Mahito gonna do? He ain't overpowering jackpot Hakari. Let's see.
happens, Mahito's curse technique will be burnt out momentarily, and when that happens, Todo, Hakari, and Yuji can beat him without him being able to reinforce his soul, since he does that through maintaining his curse technique. If the sorcerers do end up exercising Mahito, that's a huge W, since Kenjaku won't be able to get control of him and take his curse technique in order to do necessary.
That's right. Culling games can't happen. That's the thing. Culling games can happen. No matter the timeline, unless Kenny interferes as quickly as possible. Kenny would have to show up and fight. Like, straight up. He would have to show up and fight in order to make sure the culling games happen as smoothly as they do. And if that happens, then we're really talking about some domain diff. Because other than that, yeah. I completely, once again, I'm so locked in on like the Shibuya timeline and I'm thinking this would interfere with that and this and that just in Shibuya. But yeah. Mahito would get exercised, either by Group A, the Nanami group, or Group B, the Yuji group, and then boom. No culling games. Or at least no easy culling games, because Kenjaku would have to do it manually. And that would take forever. So, that would kind of suck. But I don't think culling games happen, at least not traditionally. And once again, so many more people are alive. The Zenin clan massacre doesn't even happen. Because now Bito's still clan. So many things. We don't get Awakened Maki in this timeline. Just realize that. Inumaki's fine. So wait, yeah, Yuji's not even put on execution. I think the only thing that would happen still post Shibuya is that Gojo would be like put on permanent seal, and maybe Naobito would agree with that and like turn against everybody, and then maybe Zenin Clan Massacre still happens. But outside of that, I don't really think so. We may be in trouble because once again, and yeah. Shibuya's way more intact. If Jogo doesn't maximum meteor anybody, majority of Shibuya's intact. And then, no Malevolent Shrine, because no Sukuna. Shibuya's still majorly intact. So nothing happens. We just need to chase Gojo. I'm not even sure if the higher-ups will be able to use the excuse of trying to steal Gojo away permanently. Maybe that's the only thing they would try to do, but other than that, I think they're fine. Now they think like, wow.
Things for the culling games. Assuming Kenjaku chooses to stay and fight, the sorcerers definitely are going to have a massive fight on their hands. Kenjaku has upwards of 10 million curses stored in his body at this point, and even despite the extremely powerful sorcerers on their side this time with Hakari, it's a big ask for someone to extinguish 10 million curses.
He literally just domain diffs them. Like violently domain diffs them. That would be the easiest solution to. And remember, we're not even talking about Urume showing up. They very likely would. And I'll make it even worse. But if Kenny opens domain, everyone loses. Everyone gets cooked immediately. Naobito, cooked. Nanami, cooked. Maki, cooked. Nobara, cooked. Megami, cooked. Everybody cooked. The instant Kenny goes for domain. There's no Tengen to shut that bad boy down. Everyone fried. Even Yuki, fried. If she shows up. Cooked. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's the thing. Kenny can immediately turn this super happy ending into a dark ending if he doesn't try to escape. And he doesn't get Mahito. Because he may just get mad and just domain diff everybody. Except for maybe Sukuna. He'll be like, hey, I'll leave you here. And Sukuna's gonna, like, say in chain, take over Yuji's body, be like, hey, leave the Shadow Kid! And Kenjaku's gonna be like, the Shadow Kid? Bet. Urume, take him out the domain. And Urume's under the effects of the domain itself is like, fine, and takes him out. That's about it.
Kenjaku only used this amount when he was escaping though, so for the sake of argument, we won't say he does something like this in character whenever he's fighting somebody. That being the case, the sorcerers actually have a pretty good chance of beating Kenjaku if they're able to fight him for long enough for Yuki to show up. The combination of both Yuki and Hakari fighting Kenjaku might be able to take him down this time. Yuki, with minimal help from Tengen, was almost able to take down Kenjaku while fighting alongside Choso. Choso, who is massively weaker than Hakari and on top of that, not immortal like he is. With Yuki there to deal with curse spirit manipulation as well as Hakari's immortality, I do think that they have a good chance of winning and actually saving Gojo this time.
I mean, this is the Kenny Creamer in me. I disagree. I think Kenny opens domain, and without Tengen there to stop it, they all lose. Unless, here's the thing, if Kenny opens domain too early, and then Yuki, but then again, how's Yuki supposed to do anything? Because he'd be on the lookout. And like, unless Yuki sneaks him, she would have to enter the open barrier domain and immediately start getting hit by the sure hit effect too. So like, I don't think so. I really don't think so. Because remember, a lot of people say Tengen sold. If Tengen did not break that external barrier, the barrier that Kenjaku had set up as the range for his open barrier domain, Yuki would have died. And then Choso would have never been able to re-interfere. As long as Kenny just maintains domain, he's good. And no one there will be able to press him. Especially since now, I do actually believe the domain that Kenny shows is not gravity. It's cursed spirit manipulation. That's a cursed spirit manipulation domain. I'll go more in depth on that when I make the Kenjaku Explain video. But, like, that's cursed spirit manipulation. He could also spam the millions of cursed spirits at the same time while Yuki's getting dragged by the domain sure hit. And Hakari's getting dragged by the domain sure hit. And Hakari, by the time he goes to open his own domain, the tug of war immunity wouldn't matter. It would immediately get shattered either by the billions of curses Kenny's throwing out, not billions, the hundreds of curses Kenny is throwing out, or his own barrierless domain sure hit. So Kenny can immediately make this a bad ending if he really wants to. But that's me creaming Kenny.
Around. However, this is still the bad timeline considering Maki, Megami, Nanami, and Ino's demise. Rewinding things for a minute, in the good timeline, Hakari is able.
But see, like, the thing is though, does Nanami fall? How? He's not even there. Once again, just based on how 6 explains it. If Mahito, because like Mahito doesn't just get Nanami, he would have to get Nobito, Nanami, and Hakari with Maki alongside Nanami. So, like, I'm not sure. Maybe he didn't consider that. Once again, I've been going on for a minute because I've been, like, leaping back and forth, pausing to think about the timeline. But this video is only 21 minutes long. He probably just didn't necessarily consider that. But I don't blame him because, once again, this is very complicated because of how fragile Shibuya is on a writing front.
To get to Megami, Yuji, and Ino before they engage Mahito and save both Megami and Ino's lives. Now Obito will also be there this time around, and all they really have to do is play keep away from Mahito so that he can't touch anybody's soul and
wait. He's tackling
and
it
save
now?
both Meki, Megami, Nanami, and Ino's demise. Rewinding things for a minute, in the good timeline, Hakari is able to get to Megami, Yuji, and Ino before they engage Mahito and save both Megami and Ino's lives. Now Obito will also be there this time around, and all they really have to do is play keep away from Mahito so that he can't touch anybody's soul and transfigure them. Maybe letting Yuji land a couple hits here and there just to weaken Mahito is fine, but they don't even have to do this forever. Once Todo shows up, things are going to become a lot easier for the sorcerers. Instead of just 2 people switching places, Mahito is going to have to deal with potentially 6 different sorcerers and Megami Shikigami all switching places, not knowing which one is going to do soul damage to him. The same thing happens here as in the bad timeline, where if Mahito tries a desperate domain expansion, Hakari can simply cancel it out with his own domain expansion, leaving him
if he's not in Jackpot. If he is in Jackpot, some people get domain diff. But Hakari would immediately face tank it and then brutalize Mahito afterwards.
Vulnerable and able to be beaten since he can't maintain the shape of his soul without his curse technique. Then, the same way they did in the bad timeline, things go the way they should for the sorcerers in this timeline, except with Megami and Ino surviving this time. You could also potentially say, if you want to, that both Maki and Nanami survived the fight with Jogo since Hakari was there to protect them, but I'll leave that up for you to decide. Overall, Hakari being in Shibuya is definitely a net positive for the sorcerers and has better ramifications for the rest of the story than him just not being there. If there's any character you don't think I gave enough attention to, or something you thought I breezed over that you think may be a bit more of a difficult challenge for Hakari or the other sorcerers involved, be sure to leave a comment and let me know. There were tons of factors to consider and a million different ways a lot of this stuff could go. This is just the way I chose to take it because of the way that I interpret these characters.
Alright. W video. I know I started like critiquing a whole bunch at the end because I think some timeline stuff got messed up, but still a crazy W video by 6. Amazing, fantastic, scrumdiddlyumptious, would react again, will react again. You will probably be seeing more of 6's videos on this channel and me breaking them down because that was fantastic. If you somehow, I won't hold y'all because I've been here for a minute now. If you somehow made it all the way to the end of this chunker of a video, please leave Mahito's in the comment section down below. Yes, Mahito, but like, as you spell the word toes at the end of his name. Leave my toes in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You'll also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of all my videos, and you can get a $25 patron or a $25 member to order whatever video you want. Now, I thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Nagel the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Connor Plays, Greyhound, Atkins Void, Astro, Red Wolf 4765, Eternal Flame, and Teen Mitgao. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Panda Goat, Midnight Lord 21, Metal Solid Crisis, Kevin, Ignil, and EHAC1. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 member, Autumn Mornings Lazo. And I'd like to give a big thank you to our $10 member, Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons, Joaquin and Idemokami. And I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Winter. Along with another juicy thank you to our $25 patron, ChinaDoll09. And I'd like to give a final giga gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.